Be back in session.
All right, Steve, proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to handle a slight change in the Falconry Proclamation. Walter Cook normally would do this, but Walter is out today, so I will attempt to explain it for you. Basically, falconers came to us during this past year and asked that they have a little bit extra time to trap and train their birds prior to the hunting season in the fall. We discussed it with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they did not have any problems with us doing that, did not think it'd be detrimental to the raptor population. So we are recommending amending the trapping season by starting on August the 15th of each year rather than September 15th of each year. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission? Questions from the audience?
Okay. Very good. Next thing we will be talking about is our Man and Means Proclamation, 12-05 this year. Last year, if you'll remember, with your support, we made a major revision in the Man and Means Proclamation, where we did a table form of a lot of the regulations, and by doing that, we're able to shorten proclamation down from about 7 pages down to 4 or so. So this year, there are not any major changes on it, but we had some questions last year, so we're trying to do some things for clarification on certain regulations this time around. This is just a nomenclature in the section 1 under the legal hunting devices. We specify centerfire rifles and handguns. We said centerfire weapons last year. Technically, a shotgun is a centerfire weapon because it fires a primer, whatever, rather than rimfire. This is just a nomenclature clarification. Section 2 we had in some of the House hearings this year, actually, where this came from. Representative pointed out that the noise continues to draw animals into bait sites even after the bait is gone. So we modified number 5 by adding language: any feeder has to be disabled at least 10 days prior to hunting, just like the bait being removed. Okay, in section K, there was a question that came up last year concerning air rifles, and the ammunition for air rifles was not specified. And there are air rifles on the market, and there's actually some rimfire weapons out there that will shoot archery bolts instead of the pellets or BBs or whatever air rifles. And that was not our intention of allowing that for the air rifles and others, so we're clarifying that and basically closing up a loophole by prohibiting any firearm, including air rifles, that fires archery bolts. This is a clarification for the shotgun plug regulations on migratory birds. Even though crows are migratory birds, they are not categorized with the doves, waterfowl, Wilson snipe, and whatever. And there's not a federal requirement for them to be hunted with a plug shotgun. So we have told folks over the years that they could hunt crows with unplugged shotguns, but there was nothing in our proclamations or hunting guides or whatever specifying that. So we are adding that language into the migratory bird section there, clarifying that they do not have to have plug shotguns while they're crow hunting. In the miscellaneous section, we've added 3 regulations this year to better clarify areas where we get a number of questions every year. These additions with don't really reflect any major changes, but it's just clarifications where things were just not very clear. During a deer archery only season, a fall turkey hunter may not be in possession of both deer or both archery equipment and firearms. The issue we have there is a state statute that prohibits archery hunters from being in possession of a firearm. Then we get into the fall turkey season, and archery and firearms both are legal weapons for fall turkey hunting. So you have someone out in the blind, they can't legally be there deer hunting, but they can be there fall turkey hunting, and it's the issue of what they're doing and whatever. So just for the sake of clarifying it once and for all, we're saying if you're fall turkey hunting, you've got to choose one or the other. You cannot be in possession, because we've run into some situations where people were more than likely deer hunting, but they were out there under the guise they're fall turkey hunting and having both weapons on it. So they've got to choose one or the other. Okay. Justification. Next one is somewhat, maybe a little change, or at least as a clarification. For years and years, we've had questions on whether or not you could small game hunt and deer hunt at the same time. For example, can I go to my tree stand with my 30-06 and have a .22 pistol and shoot squirrels? And the legal answer probably was no, because it put a deer hunter in possession of illegal ammunition for his sport, because the .22 is not legal for big game hunting. It put the small game hunter in violation because he couldn't have centerfire weapon. But it's pretty close. It's pretty technical, and it was not clear-cut, yay or nay, really, anywhere in the guides that answered that question. We get questions every year about it. So we had discussions in the committee that met with to give recommendations to the main staff, and we decided, yeah, there may be a couple of enforcement issues, but not enough to really have a problem. What we've tried to do the last couple of years is try to liberalize as much as we can and make it easier on the hunter. So we've come with a deal this year that will allow them to deer hunt and squirrel hunt at the same time during the muzzleloader and the gun season. They can't do it during the archery season because, again, by state statute, they are prohibited from having that firearm with them while they're archery only deer hunting, with the exception, of course, that handgun carry permit holders can have their carry weapon. So this is a little bit of a liberalization for this year. And then we continue to have questions concerning coyote hunting during the various seasons with centerfire weapons. And this was a change that we tried to clarify last year with the chart. Prior to that, for many, many years, we had a regulation basically to this effect. It was so convoluted, I'd get a headache every time I read through it and tried to explain to somebody. It's very, very complicated. You miss one word and it's totally changed things. The chart, by the way, I think did very well. We got a lot of positive comments from the public about it and seemed to cut down some of the questions, but we still had a question. The chart last year said that legal big game hunters could use centerfire weapons or whatever. Then the question was, well, I'm a legal archery hunter. Can I archery hunt? They had not been able to use centerfires during that season before, so there are some questions. This particular regulation just tries to clarify once and for all what they can do. If it's during an archery only or muzzleloader archery only deer, bear, or elk season, fur bearers may not be taken with rifles and handguns using centerfire ammunition. During the gun muzzleloader archery season, fur bearers may be taken by legal big game hunters licensed for the weapon that they are using. So It does not cut out coyote hunting during that period of time, but it does limit them to using rimfire and shotguns during the archery and muzzleloader season. Recently, and this is going back to Daryl's, that these proclamations are somewhat evolving until you all pass them at May. We've had some questions concerning the use of silencers or suppressors for hunting. My understanding, we had a regulation at one time concerning that, but even on our staff, we had differences of opinion of whether or not it was legal or not. In law enforcement division, we've been telling folks for years, because we had the regulation, that they could as long as they were licensed. What we would like to do prior to your May meeting is add one more thing to the miscellaneous. It says, use of suppressors, silencers is legal for persons possessing the required federal license, the United States Department of Treasury. They get it from the ATF, by the way. Hunters using these devices must have proof of such license on their person. That way, there's not any question if an officer runs into them out there, whether or not they are properly licensed. They can make a photostatic copy of their ATF license and carry it with them if they're using these. We did not have very many public comments concerning manner and means, but one request that was repeated a couple times was to liberalize our muzzleloading regulations by adding shotguns, some of the black powder rifles, and even some other type of rifles into the muzzleloader season for a variety of reasons. We discussed that at length in our subcommittee, Manner and Means, and there was no desire to move in that direction. And then when we discussed it, staff feels like we have developed a pretty strong contingent of muzzleloader hunters over the last 40 years. And we have developed a very successful type of season. And the staff consensus was not to make those changes. In fact, the staff said that their preference were, if these changes had to come at some point in time, was just to do away with the muzzleloader season entirely and just have a firearm season where they could use all these weapons. But this is the amount of revenue that we're generating off the muzzleloader season right now. So pretty significant to our agency operations. So the staff was not in favor of liberalizing our muzzleloader regulations. Any questions, Commission? Yes, sir.
Steve, just a quick question.
Sure.
The conservation season for blue snows and Ross geese, we are not allowing unplugged shotguns for that conservation season. Is that correct?
I believe we are.
I think, and the reason I'm asking it is that under the migratory bird regulations, number 2, no person shall hunt migratory game birds with a shotgun of any description, yada, 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 capable of holding more than 3 shells. We don't have an exclusion for that conservation season.
This is one of the examples of where we have some proclamations in conflict, and that's one of the things we tried to address this year with some problems with the WMA proclamation, manner and means.
Is that
It
something
says
we need
it,
to
I
modify?
believe, in the waterfowl proclamation, but it does not say it here, and it's something we will change prior to May.
Thank you, sir.
Add that in. Thank you for pointing it out.
Commissioner McMillan?
Could you clarify that on the, I thought I saw it right, that you said all feeders had to be disabled at least 10 days before?
Yes.
Well, what about a gravity-fed feeder, just a tube tied to a tree? I mean, disable it, I mean, if it's empty, it's empty.
Yes, we would consider that disabled. The regulation is primarily dealing with electronic feeders.
So
They can
could-
continue to go off and the animals coming to the noise,
So basically just
Rather-
taking the battery out of it's
taking the battery out
Okay,
of the electronic feeders and disabling them.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, if it's a grant, excuse me, before, during the year-hunting season, if the person hunts coyotes with a centerfire rifle, am I correct? The person must wear
Yes, sir. He has to be a totally legal big game hunter. And that requires a blaze orange in addition to the legal license, proper license.
Chairman Brown?
Don't ask, has there been any consideration given to requiring that the feeders be removed, period? I mean, don't animals get adjusted to that? I'm sure the noise triggers my.
One of the,
Commissioner McMillan's about to have a stroke.
People got on feeders, they don't have to disable them and take them out of there. No one
What?
has to disable and corners out.
Yeah, but if you, these gravity-fed jobs, if you just keep going back pouring corn in
I've
them.
got a call that sounds like a feeder.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? All right. Thank you, Steve. Excellent job.
and that concludes all of our hunting season recommendations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Daryl, before you come up, we're just going to take a quick 15-second break here. Don't anybody leave. Great. I guess you'll be coming in.